Hey, welcome back to Vox Terra, and if you haven't done so, please do subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell so you know when I'm putting up a new video. Today, we're going to talk about the airline industry and their trials and travails as the media portrays it. But keep in mind, this industry is a heavily subsidized industry that came to light obviously during the pandemic when we heard about all those airline bailouts and relief. But even before that, it's subsidized. So now let's think about this as a case study for the nature of our media and the nature of what those of us who care about our environment are up against and what we are dealing with. Today we hear in the news media all the time, it could be the mainstream news media or what's sometimes derided as liberal news media, and if you're listening to Fox and One American News and those kind of things, which are often called conservative news media, though I believe really they're representing the most reckless elements of the business community, dressed as conservative news media. But we often hear in those media outlets, all of them, about the laments of the airline industry during the pandemic. Now that the economy is coming back a bit, we hear often just joyfully and uncritically, isn't this wonderful? The airline industry is rebounding. Yet none of them are contrasting it with what I showed you from Yale 360, that carbon levels in our atmosphere are now the highest they've been in 3 million years. Carbon levels in our atmosphere are the highest they've been in 3 million years. The airline industry is a very fuel consumptive industry, especially jet travel. But that's not what they're focusing on. That's not what they're talking about. So one, you've got Fox News and those kind of outlets who claim to be conservative, but really what I think they're doing is taking some legitimate conservative concerns and then wrapping it, using those concerns to deflect people from what's happening to our climate and our environment. Now, and they'll portray that there's a big green conspiracy. Well, if there was a big green conspiracy, then wouldn't CNN and NPR be lamenting the rebound of the airline industry, not cheering it? But they're not. So we have a media environment that's all influenced by large business interests. So if people who identify as liberal, they're not really hearing it tied back. Hey, airlines are coming back, carbon levels are going up. What are the other pollution consequences? They're not being hit with that. So they deprioritize the gravity of the environmental situation, and they're not making the environment the priority it should be, and that could be a great unifying priority for people. And in the so-called conservative media, they're being told people who care about the environment are part of a trick. So to give you a little information and sites to go to, I went to Environment and Energy Study Institute, and there they quoted that according to the EPA, aircrafts contribute 12% of U.S. transportation emissions and account for 3% of the nation's total greenhouse gas production. Despite significant improvements in efficiency of aircraft and flight operations over the past 60 years, passenger air travel is producing the highest and fastest growing growth of individual emissions. So there, Environment and Energy Institute is concerned about what the airlines are doing to our environment. Now go to Environmental Defense Fund, which is looking at solutions. Now, Environmental Defense Fund, they're not a radical organization. They're transformative. They are worth looking at, regardless of whether you consider yourself radical or transformative. They are worth it because they try to go for actual, tangible solutions. But even this non-radical, business-friendly organization barely gets discussed in our media and the solutions they put forth. So just to familiarize you with a couple, the EDF is working to reduce airlines' aviation's climate impact. They've worked with the International Civil Aviation Organization to limit the net carbon emissions of international flights between participating countries. That organization, apparently working with EDF, adopted what's called the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation, or CORSIA. If fully implemented, CORSIA could prevent nearly 2.5 billion tons of CO2 emissions into the atmosphere over the first 15 years. Well, if fully implemented, right? But nobody even knows about this. But if fully implemented, it could reduce 2.5 billion tons of emissions. But that's still really a dent. But even that's not being discussed. Some of the plans the EDF puts out, very non-radical plans, more efficient aircraft, more efficient flight paths, and a reduction of delays. I guess there we're talking about not idling those engines on the runway, analogous to all of the individuals idling their engines in the parking lots. Lower carbon fuel alternatives, and here I think we could talk about green hydrogen, and emissions offsets. And here we'd be talking about, forest wilderness set-asides primarily. While those have benefits to the ecology and the environment, they may or may not actually be reducing carbon and be efficiently sinking carbon due to the nature of our changing climate. So that is the media environment we are dealing with. These are the subsidized industries that we pay for, and that media environment is not discussing the fact that even though we subsidize these industries, how they should be going greener and harming our real health even less than they are. Well, hey, I hope you found this video helpful in helping build environmental thinking. And if you did, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel. You've clicked that notification bell, you're liking, you're commenting, and until next time, peace be with you.